Hello, so my name's Mahabodhi. I'm just going to do a short video to explain why we have the doctrine of non-self in Buddhism, and that might be a bit confusing to you if you think, well, how can you not have a self? So I think there's quite a bit of misunderstanding around this doctrine. So we're going to try and clear it up in this video. It's just a short video. So first of all, we have the idea of agency. We're agents, we kind of know that we're agents, don't we? We know that we're the center of our experience. We know that we take other people seriously, and we look after people. So it's like people are centers of experience. That's really important in Buddhism. So Buddhism is about overcoming suffering and solving the problems of life. So that's its only role, really, is to solve the problem of suffering. And it's living beings that suffer. So there are centers of experience and we are agents. But how does this fit in with the idea of non-self, or the not being a self? So in Hinduism, you have the idea of Atman, or fixed self, that stands or sits behind experience, behind phenomena. And the Buddha said, well, no, he didn't think this is the case in his experience. And so he came up with what are called the three lakshanas, or the three marks of conditioned existence. So unenlightened experience as we know it is impermanent, it's subject to suffering or dukkha, and it's also anatta, or not self. So in this little diagram, we can see that there are three possibilities along the bottom there. There's the possibility of there being no self. There's a possibility of being a fixed self, which is like the idea of Atman. And then you've got something in the middle, which is a self, but it's not permanent. So I think it's useful to think in terms that this impermanent self is marked by grasping. So this is how we are, isn't it? We're often grasping onto things. We're saying, oh, this is me, this is mine, this belongs to me. And we're identifying with certain things as us, or ours, our body and our mind, we identify as ours. But looking at the diagram, it's almost like there's an axis which goes horizontally, which is the axis of agency. How much of an agent are we? Are we not an agent? Are we a fixed agent? Or in the middle, we've got a grasping agent. So there's agency on the one hand, but in the vertical axis, I think what we've got is the idea of grasping. So we can be an agent, but not being so attached to, or identifying so much with ourselves, with our experience, with what we think is ours. And we have a more general sense of helping the world. Other people become as important to us as ourselves. So we become less selfish and more selfless. So it's almost like in the vertical axis, we're growing bigger and bigger. Our sphere of concern gets larger. In a way, we take more responsibility for the world, our effect on other people. So in that sense, we're kind of more and more of an agent, really. But what often happens is that in physics, you have the idea of a potential well, where you've got a U-shaped surface. And so when you drop a ball onto that surface, it goes down and up the other side and then back again. It keeps going backwards and forwards until it comes to rest in the middle. This is a potential well. But I think it's more like the spiritual life is the opposite of that. It's like a potential hill. It's hard work to bring things into awareness, to be kind, to bear others in mind, to bear in mind all the different things we need to bear in mind. So for instance, if we're trying to create positive things in the world, we might be enthusiastic about that and do that a lot. But then because of the nature of everything in the universe, everything falls apart again. So the danger is that we create things, or we do positive things, and then they just disintegrate, they just fall apart. So it's hard to not get depressed about that or not give up. So it's easy to be in the middle, or be having a spiritual life with meaning in it, helping people and all that sort of thing. And then we start to drift to one side, and it's like the more that we drift to one side, we fall away from the center, fall down the hill and go to an extreme. So we might go to the extreme of giving up, or we might go to the extreme of maybe blaming ourselves a lot, taking too much responsibility for things that maybe aren't our responsibility. So we tend to go to extremes. So it's hard work to keep coming back to the centre. So I think this is a really useful way of looking at spiritual life. It's like an uphill struggle to bring awareness into the world. So that's why we have to practice. You can think of the centre as like the path of development, where we're trying to take our agency seriously. We're obviously not in charge of everything. There are always factors that are not down to us, but we do what we can, and we try and take more and more responsibility for the good in the world. And then it's almost like we become this non-grasping self. So it's like we create lots of positive effects in the world, but we're not then attached to those carrying on, because they won't carry on. So the Bodhisattva, the altruistic Buddhist, is more and more non-grasping, and then more and more compassionate and engaged with the world. It's like both being engaged and also being non-attached to what the world gives back. In a way, the self gets bigger as it ascends up the middle. So anyway, so I hope that clarifies something about the idea of non-self. It's not exactly the opposite of a fixed self. It's something in the middle between a fixed self and no self. Okay, thank you.